be where he can shine even more than in the past, where it has been a bit limited.
Very fair.
So, see Kassadin over in a soul ban already. That could be because Crown has a lot of other mid laners that he likes to play, and he just wants to get like a few out of the way so he can play something he's comfortable on. I don't really know.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing potentially that might be 3 mid lane bans, so they might just be heavily focusing Sencux to throw him into a specific matchup. I believe Samsung, though, they have blue side, so Splyce, if they elect for it, they do have the counter pick.
There's the Cinder ban too.
Banned out too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the first pick, RekSai coming in, obviously that had been banned fairly heavily. We still have to wait a while before we see, you know, the mid lane. But again, Crown is a guy who has played just so much of a lot of different champions. He's one who brought out the Varus a fairly frequent bit. The Lissandra we saw is something that we're expecting to be pretty heavy at Worlds if he gets involved in those team fights early on. But he's also played the Cassiopeia. He's also played the LeBlanc, bit of Twisted Fate. There's a lot of options for this guy.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I think Splyce in the qualifier. Oh, we see Cassiopeia being hovered, but he played a lot of Malzahar, so he's gonna log in the Cassiopeia, and it makes sense with the Syndra ban because Syndra can be quite obnoxious in lane. So both Cassio and Malzahar would have suffered a bit playing against Syndra, so it does make sense to go ahead and pick that.
yeah.
So he has a lot of information to work with here,
Yeah,
a lot of time.
I feel like a lot of Splyce's team comp is already actually revealed just in those first 2 picks. They also hand over the counter pick to Crown. Now, I don't know what he's going to do with it. They do have the physical damage jungler CuVee, and they have the periodic magic damage dealer Rumble up in top lane. So I don't know if maybe Crown is planning to bring out Jace. But he could easily just go with, you know, his tried, true, and tested Viktor as well.
Yeah, I think something that can poke a bit, he would probably go with, just because they have Rumble and Ezreal already, and we have seen from the previous teams that they like a kind of pokey composition with Rumble. I think for the mid lane specifically right now, RekSai is probably the best jungler at ganking mid that's available, just because Elise is banned, and from my knowledge, junglers don't really like to play Lee Sin into RekSai, so they are probably going to have a jungle advantage for ganking mid lane. And Cassio is also one of the champions you can gank quite easily, just because RekSai can come from so many different angles.
Yep.
Definitely
Definitely agree.
A fairly risky pick to take for Splyce in the early game, or just confidence?
The what?
The early
Jinx?
Cassiopeia.
Oh, the early Cassiopeia. I feel like that has to be confidence. I think that's a very dangerous thing to do when Samsung Galaxy, they do play as a team, but it does become the crown show in the later stages, so why you would give up any sort of ability to him to have his way with, you know, choosing what the 2v2 and the 1v1 matchup is going to be in mid lane, it's a little bit interesting, and he is hovering that Viktor. It's probably his best champion, so he might just lock it in here, and if that is going to be the case, then Samsung Galaxy has a lot of poke, but they also have a lot of gears that they can turn on with the Equalizer, with Nami's Tidal Wave, and the Gravity Field coming out of Viktor.
Yeah, I really think Viktor is actually one of the best picks you can pick. Not necessarily for the laning phase, but because of the mid game. So how it's going to go for the early game is that RekSai can hand over blue buff to Viktor, and Viktor is a very mana-reliant champion. He's not very strong in the early game because he needs to get to 1.2k gold. And RekSai is one of the, probably the best champion at accelerating Viktor into that first upgrade of his Hex Core. Just because he can get blue buff and he ganks very, very well. And it's very easy to gank the Cassiopeia lane because you can have the RekSai knock up into the Viktor W, and you pretty much have to flash it every single time. So, and also later on in the game, when Viktor already gets 2 or 3 upgrades, he is very likely to build Rylai's, just so he can stick onto people, and he's one of the best champions at actually reaching the backline, which is very good because Splyce has Jinx and Cassio, so it's easy for him just to send his lasers in and his ultimate in, and just have those 2 abilities basically annihilate the Jinx and the Cassiopeia.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong and deadly combo for Samsung, but they're still going to have to worry about quite a lot of damage coming out of the Splyce side. The Kled now locked in as well, but you know, not so much about the top lane matchup, but he can get from point A to point B pretty quickly. You know, does Crown have to watch out for, aside from just trashy ganks, the Kled coming in post 6?
The good thing about playing against Graves as Viktor is that he's actually not very good at ganking Viktor. he can E kind of onto Viktor, but Viktor just puts down his gravity field, and then if Graves really wants to commit, he can flash over it, or he can like ultimate from far away. So he actually cannot deal a lot of damage to Viktor in a gank. And Viktor is not a champion you really can go behind as a Graves. It's just like you kind of go from the side, you hit a few auto attacks, you use your E and your Q, but it's too hard to do versus Viktor. He just runs away with his gravity field.
Right.
So I think that Samsung Galaxy has a really, really good draft, and I'm very happy that we get to see Viktor in this game.
Yep. Another thing to point out about this draft is Samsung Galaxy does have the gear that they can activate where they can just turtle their inhibitor turrets and get to their late game team fighting. Because if you look at Splyce's team composition, they do have an ability to engage, but they don't really, in my opinion, have a way to break into the base.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult for Splyce to really shut down Samsung's composition here. We will see what Kled is able to do, since we haven't seen too much of him. He might just be very, very good into the Rumble matchup. If we can keep killing him over and over again, it might be a good split push option. But that's also something Viktor actually shuts down pretty well, is the abilities to split push. He's very good in a side lane, where he just can basically go onto the enemy top laner once he has Rylai's, and he can just run them down with his upgraded Q that gives him extra movement speed and a shield.
Yep.
So.
All right, guys. Of course, now that we're in the game, just like on the mainstream, don't forget to log into Twitter, hit those votes, hashtag SSGWin or hashtag SBYWin. We're going to see the results later on in the game. And popping up on the screen, there's a reason Crown is known for his Viktor play. It has been his far and away most played champion.
Yep, and I believe he played it 18 times in LCK, and it is his highest damage per minute champion. And I think that it's his comfort champion. Like, if there's one champion you don't want Crown to have, it's his Viktor.
Absolutely. Crown has been the guy that's done the most damage out of LCK mid laners. It's something like 32%. And, a big part of it is having that Viktor.
Yeah, I mean, Viktor's just very good overall. Some of his weaknesses is that he needs to get to his 1,250 gold before he bases, so he can upgrade his hex core. If he doesn't get that base, that's what Sencux should be looking to do, is he needs to hit his Tear of the Goddess and then base as soon as possible to prevent Crown from getting his first upgrade. So it's going to be pretty difficult for him to do it, because he has a RekSai jungle. So Crown is more likely to hit his power strike, and he can play a bit more aggressive and just use his entire mana pool in early game, get blue buff, and then he can go back to harassing Sencux out of lane, because he has his long range E ability. Very obnoxious to deal with in the early game.
You're starting to see a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think that's a problem for Sencux, because I don't think he's using his level 1 really effectively. He only trades with Viktor when Viktor wants to trade, and that's bad for him. What's called Sencux needs to trade when Crown needs to last hit minions, because Crown only has single target abilities right now at level 1. So if Sencux tries to trade with Crown when Crown needs to last hit, Crown either gives up a CS for the trade, or he gets the CS and then Sencux will win the trade.
Yep. And right now, I mean, this is a pretty painful situation, I think, for Sencux to be in. He's going to be comfortable as long as he can fade a gank that could come in maybe a minute or two, but the lane is intentionally manipulated to, I think, play into that Crown Ambition, duo. And I think they want to make something happen in mid, just by how Crown is playing these early levels.
Another problem for this matchup is that Cassiopeia, for her to win her trades, she needs to be pushing, so she has a lot of minions. So every single time Viktor uses his Q auto attack onto Cassiopeia, Viktor will take a lot of minion damage, and that's how Cassiopeia kind of wins the trades. Besides that, if they trade in burst only, then Viktor will obviously win. He has his Q auto attack into E, which is very strong. So it does open up for ganks, for the RekSai to gank the Cassiopeia, which is very bad for Sencux. So he's in a really tough spot.
Yeah, he's just trying to sidestep out of the Death Laser, and generally having a rough time to start things off. And also, if you guys watching at home still have any other questions for us, you can always send those on Twitter via hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll get to those as the game goes on, especially relating into this mid lane matchup.
Yeah, so one good thing that Trashy is doing to help out his mid laner is going ahead and take RekSai's blue before he can get to it. So Crown will not be able to get the blue buff, and that's very, very big in this matchup.
Yep.
And you also saw Trashy hovering around mid lane a lot to see if RekSai would actually gank, which he did.
Uh-oh.
No, he's fine.
Yeah.
Viktor cannot do anything early game because he goes Zoom. He really needed that blue buff, so I think right now Trashy could honestly just, like, he knows where RekSai is gonna end up, so he could just go into Ambition's jungle and just counter jungle, and that makes Sencux play really safe, so he didn't necessarily need to push out. But now I think Cassiopeia is gonna base with a good amount of gold by Tear of the Goddess, and that's just before Viktor can actually get his first Hex Core upgrade, so that's a very, very good base timing. Of course, Sencux is in a very, very good spot to get a lead in this game, and I think he's gonna crawl ahead a couple of CS, and Crown can't really do much about it. So Cassiopeia is gonna come back to lane now, and he's gonna look to freeze the lane. So ideally what you want to do when you have this good of a base, and you know Viktor cannot base for the next 1.5 minion waves, then you want to look to freeze, and you want your jungler to be around, so you can abuse that he does not have any items and you have items.
Right. Right now we see that Viktor is reaching the point where he's trying to get to that Hex Core upgrade because it is crucial to his laning phase.
I really hope Sencux is not gonna just push out. Right now he's killing too many creeps and he cannot deny Crown of any CS. He should just let the creeps, like, just let Crown's creep kill all of his creeps, and he cannot get any CS at all. I think this is a very big misplay. Now Crown can just pick up the CS for absolutely no reason, and Sencux is not gonna go ahead and do anything. He could have denied the entire minion wave.
Yep, absolutely.
Meanwhile, up on the top side, Ambition helps secure that first blood, or you know, picks it up for himself onto Wunder. But back in this mid lane, yeah, he's Crown's starting to find a little bit more CS back for himself, and Sencux still in that lead, but
well, you can see that Sencux is having a lead, and it's very good. He played the matchup out really, really well so far. Trashy helped him out by denying Viktor the blue buff, and then Viktor can't do a lot. I actually see him miss a cannon creep. That really,
yeah, that
hurts me. But
just a little bit.
But besides that, Sencux could be freezing right now, and Viktor could not get any CS at all, compared to Viktor actually getting CS and experience, and he hits level 6 and just cleans it out with his ultimate.
Yep. And this is
so I think right now Sencux could be up like maybe half a level, if not even more, if he just chose to freeze the lane, and RekSai can't do anything about it. RekSai can't gank a champion for a champion that has no mana at all.
Right. One of the things that was interesting is they knew basically exactly where Ambition was going to be almost at all times. They had a pretty good idea of it because of the compromise onto the blue and when they shoved Crown underneath turret. So everything that Froggen was just saying was absolutely correct. I don't understand why when Crown handed over, I think it was like a 7 minion wave to Sencux, that he elected just to shove it back into Crown, because that's what Crown wanted to do. Even from level 1, we saw that that's how we wanted to play out the laning phase.
And another point is that if Crown had enough gold to base and buy his Hex Core upgrade, then it would be okay for Sencux to actually push in the minion wave, but since he did not, there's no reason not to freeze it. So, and another cannon minion was missed.
Still hurting there?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Hex Core upgrade, because we've actually got a tweet about Viktor builds here from @GarlicTweets. What is the best build for Viktor in this game? Is there any reason not to finish Hex Core before building other items?
So usually how it goes, especially since Viktor got nerfed, you want to upgrade the Hex Core as many times as possible because it gets cheaper for every single upgrade you get. But what happens most of the time is that you just skip getting boots unless you have a really good base timing. You just skip boots, you get 2 upgrades, and you either go into Lost Chapter or you go into Rylai's Crystal Scepter. If you go Lost Chapter, it's because you have problems getting blue buffs and have problem controlling your mana because you're trading a lot, or because of what other reasons there might be. Besides that, you want to get Rylai's Crystal Scepter as soon as possible, just so you can put down your ultimate on top of the enemy, and then you can just keep chasing him down and he can't do anything about it, because Viktor ultimate has insane base damage and it just keeps on ticking, so you can't actually trade in Viktor AoE.
And right now, I mean, I don't know what Sencux is hoping to achieve with how he's playing this laning phase. Crown is also going to be able to activate the Dirty Farm now whenever he chooses, which that is going to mount him ever so slightly at overtime. But it looks like we're going to have a roam type play coming on.
Oh, okay. That's why he was going for that one. Sencux with that quick double kill, and
That's very good follow-up.
gets Splyce back into that game, really.
And this is partly because Crown didn't go mid and actually trade. He just decided to go take the 3 small raves, and maybe there was some miscommunication in his team or something like that. Because on Viktor, you do want to farm up, but you also want to like challenge the roam if it does eventually come. Which Sencux, as fast as doing, he can push up the Viktor, and it's very, very well played and a very good roam.
Yeah, we see a ping going out on the top lane. They might actually look to do a 3-man roam and then reset Crown's blue buff right now. But we saw that Mikyx was actually moving that way, and he did have level 6, so he would have been able to hop in and save Wunder up there in top lane.
Crown's definitely been playing a little more follow this game rather than getting the incentive to roam on his own, and it's kind of strange. It's something he was known for in LCK, really, to be that guy that was going to roam around and help buff up lanes.
Yeah.
The problem with roaming in the early game, especially because he did not have a good base timing, and Sencux did, he has the pressure in the lane, so he will constantly push up Crown until Crown decides to like really go have a more offensive position and just really push it out, which is exactly what he's doing now, and that's very good. That's what he should be looking to do as Viktor. He should push up another minion wave and then base as soon as he has the next upgrade and maybe get boots too. And then once he has the 2 upgrades, he's gonna be very strong. He can dodge a lot of the Cassiopeia abilities, and that's when Cassio will have a bit rougher time in lane.
Yep. And I'm wondering if, because he just chose to get that blue buff right now, if he's going to go for the blue Viktor, which I believe is very popular in Korea, where you get Ionian boots with second Hex Core upgrade. And that just gives you a lot of mobility. It opens up a lot of your summoner spells. You can use them much more liberally. And you know, he can help out his team a little bit more. And I don't think that Sencux, given how he's choosing to play the lane this game, is really going to be able to keep up with that. And we're going to find out in a second if that is going to be his itemization path.
All right, so it does seem like things are going pretty well for Crown considering how Sencux is playing this one out. But do the 2 kills he's picked up, does that accelerate him to a point where Crown needs to be a little bit more careful than he was previously?
It does accelerate him, but you can see Sencux is going for a lot of mana. He really wants to build up that mana pool, and he's having some magic resistance too. So it really depends on how Sencux decides to play the lane. If he decides to go really aggressive onto Crown, I think he can actually do it, but he needs to be careful he's not caught in a fog-off wall like you saw before. He walks into a close to a bush and he just gets chunked out, and that makes him lose lane pressure. If he's full HP and he wants to play aggressive onto Crown, then I really think he can do it. He just needs to kind of do it in the right way, where he wants to be in lane, contest the minion wave, throw out the W, and then if it's a Q, he can go really aggressive. Like here, he keeps walking back, he can like go straight, and there's the rumble roam.
Yeah, he knows CuVee's right there, and even though Sencux is going to spend that ulti, there's nothing doing. So CuVee gets the kill instead of Crown, but still, nice teamwork there for Samsung.
Yep. And I wouldn't be surprised if you look at the minimap right now, if Crown actually just rotated down and they took up a Drake right now. The alternative would be to actually eat this minion wave and then look to steal the wraiths away from Trashy.
Oh, Kled is rolling down right now, so...
Oh, here he comes.
Oh, there's the counter gang. Let's see.
Well, it's a lot of damage they got on Trashy before it was all over.
Ulti's the wrong way.
Crown says not today.
All right, well, there's your answer. Double kill for Viktor.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
And Mikyx wishes he wasn't here right now.
It's all right. They're going to be able to back up right now. I think that they should just actually look to take a dragon opportunity here, and then also Crown should try to steal away the wraiths and have let the lane just reset normally, and then he can fall back and eat it. So a little bit interesting. His choice there. I think he could have maximized a little bit better. But nonetheless, let's see what his itemization is going to be in. He's going right into Rylai's.
We got to take a look at this again. This is why I love Kled, by the way. He's the most YOLO champion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's
they
a
read
lot of
this
fun,
really, really, really well. I mean, everything just basically lined up. They also didn't respect the fact that as Samsung Galaxy has teleport, Tahm Kench's ultimate, even if he's there on time, it's not going to do anything. In fact, I think he would even die.
Yeah. This is Samsung just being
This
able
is
to
what they do.
read the map a lot better and
Yep.
being able to fight more cohesively than Splyce is.
Yep. And remember, Samsung Galaxy's team composition, they are the late game superior team comp. So the longer that this game goes, and not only just the longer that it goes, they have 3 absolutely enormous scaling champions.
All right. Well, we got another question from Twitter. We can take a look back to the mid lanes and the summoner spell choices this time from @SolsticeSunGod. I see Ghost on Cassiopeia and Viktor a lot. Why is this over others, and how do I use them to my advantage?
I think Ghost is just very good because of the teamfight potential. Sometimes you do see Viktor take heal because it's a bit better in lane. You can trade more offensively, so you can like win out on the trades if you keep on trading. But here I see both players basically just want to teamfight really well, and they can dodge each other's abilities with the Ghost. Like if you can Ghost out of Viktor ultimate, Viktor can try to stay in range with the Ghost. But yeah, heal is not entirely uncommon, or sometimes even exhaust if you play against an assassin. But besides that, I think Ghost is just the best ability for team fighting.
Yeah. Oh. I might have to use it soon. Maybe not quite.
Yeah.
Dodges out of.
He does have to dodge the Jinx ultimate.
Ooh,
if,
yeah.
Kobbe?
Yep.
Kobbe, yeah, elects to try to shoot it.
Not this time. No blind into the fog of war.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're able to successfully force Crown back right now, but he's still not having too much trouble. Like the 2-kill lead that Sencux had taken, pretty much neutralized off of the team fight. You know, Samsung are looking pretty good. And
yeah.
Crown, you know, where does he go from here? Does he need to sit mid lane, or can he start roaming around?
Well, the thing is that top and bottom tier 1 tower are down, and you can also see that because Crowd acknowledges that, there's no real incentive to go for the 2-2, the double blue build. So he completes into the final Hex Core. He's going to get all the upgrades, obviously, there, get the AP, get the mana from that. It's a very, very cheap buy, given that it's only 750 gold now because of the changes to Viktor a few patches ago. And that's just Crown saying that he acknowledges that the game has entered into a turtle stance, with the next thing that's likely to happen is going to be a team fight, in which case the Ionian boots don't really do anything, but that Hex Core does a lot.
I think, honestly, Ionian boots does just as much as the Hex Core upgrade, but the reason he purchased the Hex Core is because he just had like 800, 900 gold to base with. If he had 600 gold, I don't think he would have went ahead and sold his Dawn String. I think he would just have upgraded his boots. I think both items are just really valuable to have. The good thing about the W upgrade in teamfights is that it kind of just collects everyone in the middle, and then his E can hit everyone twice, and that's very, very strong. And I think the improved Flash and Ghost, if he had Ionian boots, would be massive for teamfights as well.
Yep. Agree with that.
It's only you know, Giant's Belt and Combined cost away from picking up on that Rylai's. I mean, how much does this really spike Viktor's power with the slow as well as the AP?
It's huge because most people don't really see Viktor as a champion that can pick people off, but when he finishes Rylai's, he really has a role of a pick-off champion too. If he hits someone with his Q, if he hits someone with his E, he can just constantly run them down, and there's nothing they can do about it other than flashing away. So completing that is one of the best item power spikes he gets in the game, because it's usually around level 13 too, where he has Q max and he has E max, and it's at the lowest cooldowns. So it's just overall very good.
Well, there's Fight Ambition. He's caught a little bit here, and the Jinx Rocket's going to execute, so Splyce do manage to get a kill, but they're going to have to flash away from that Chaos Storm. Crown's running them down, and that's what you're talking about. Oh, man. But, you know, it's a double kill for Sencux before he goes down.
Yeah, and a double kill for Crown, and that's not where you want the kills to be going for Samsung Galaxy.
Yeah, I think Trashy had flash up, so he could have flashed it as well, but I guess he didn't expect the Viktor damage.
Yeah.
Besides that, I think it was a pretty well fought team fight. Crown tried to just run out of all the AoE that they could throw at him, so he was in a safe position while he keeps his Chaos Storm onto 2 people, and it picks him up a couple of kills, and that's very good.
Oh, that's not a good idea. I think Wunder might actually die here. Crown deals a ton of damage.
Well, he lost Skarl,
no.
but Miky's there.
Miky might go down? Yeah. Never mind.
But next time they make that mistake, they will not be able to get away, because Crown will have his Rylai's Crystal Scepter. And that's really the difference between having Crystal Scepter and not having Crystal Scepter. Once you have it, no one can get away.
I'm actually really surprised right now that they didn't just give Wraiths over to Crown. That way he could complete Rylai's and Ionian Boots. But nonetheless, he will come back with Rylai's now, and that's a game changer, because now it adds CC to Viktor's kit beyond just the Gravity Field, and as you can see, all these Chaos Storms would be slowing. The lasers, the Qs, it becomes very obnoxious, and Viktor becomes extremely slippery.
I also think this is partly because Samsung has better items to fight right now than Splyce, so they just won the fight. Because on the other hand, Sencux actually did really well in the fight. I mean, he only got ulti on one person, which is not the greatest, but he managed to pick off Wraith, and then he managed to pick off the Ezreal afterwards too. And that's actually well played by him too. It's just that I think Samsung actually had their power spikes and they were ready to fight.
It's actually a pretty good point. I mean, when you look at the compositions and what they're built to do, we talked about Samsung being able to, late game fight really well, but how much does the Cassiopeia and to a lesser extent the Jinx really play into Splyce's ability to match that the longer the game goes?
I think Cassiopeia is gonna do fine. They don't have a whole lot of things that can actually get on top of her. They really have the Rumble ultimate, RekSai can unburrow on top of her, and Crown can throw his long range abilities, and then they have the Ezreal poke. Besides that, they don't really have a whole lot of abilities.
Ooh, Crown's got this.
There we go. Waits for the moment, flashes in. That's mine, I got it. Okay, so we're getting close to 20 minutes, and you can see Samsung, even though the kills might look pretty even, Samsung's definitely the ones that are controlling this pace and pushing it in
Right now
forward.
they're 5k behind, so it's quite significant just because of how their champions actually snowball the game.
Yep. The thing about Samsung Galaxy's team composition is generally it would be one that would normally be behind, given that it's a Viktor mid lane with an Ezreal bottom lane. The fact that they're ahead, it only exacerbates the problem for Splyce because they would want to either be near even or actually ahead of Samsung Galaxy. So even though the gold difference is only 6k, it's more like you're looking at like 10k or something.
Like realistic expectations, yeah. That's starting to look pretty rough if you're Splyce, and Crown is, of course, a big part of that, even though Sencux is trying to chase him down with the Ghost. Laser damage starting to prove pretty heavy here. Let's head back to Twitter for just a second.
That looks like a tilt, by the way, out of Sencux. I don't know in what world
you never know.
he expects to kill him there.
I've cast a lot of Sencux over this year. He sometimes wants to go a little more ham. EU mid laners and something or other like that. But back to Twitter. Brian Crutchett1, he says, when do you know when is the appropriate time to go to base when it comes to wave management? I think both you gentlemen can probably elaborate quite a bit on that.
I mean, we touched on it a bit in the early game, where it's you want to base when you have your items and whenever you're gonna be strong in lane. So for Sencux, it's when he has the Tear of the Goddess. For Crown, it's when he has his first Hexcore upgrade, and it's really like whenever you have your item, you want to look to base as soon as possible. And it's also important to be on top of that with your jungler, so he doesn't invade when you have a really good base timing. I think Splyce actually did outplayed Crown and Ambition in that early part of the game just because of that, but they failed to really do more with that lead they actually gained from the base advantages. So,
okay.
I think he might go down.
Wave goodbye. Took
Okay.
a little longer than they might have thought, but I mean, Samsung, they're able to own so much of this map right now.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a lot of resource investment via the Ghost. But back to what Froggen was saying about the itemization recalling, you generally want to time your recalls around your recipe items or the components, whatever. But also you want to time it so that it does something for you in the lane. If you would just recall and get an amplifying tome, but you only have 0.4 AP ratios, I mean, it's not really going to do too much for you. So generally you want to try to sustain and live a little bit longer so that you have a more productive recall.
yeah. On the other hand, it's also very important that you play around your opponent's base timings. So with a lot of the mid lane champions, you know that they want to hit their items. Like Malzahar, 900 gold, Lost Chapter, he's very strong then. Cassiopeia, Tear of the Goddess, she's very strong then. Viktor, you have the first upgrade, he's very strong then. So you need to play around that too. So even if you actually don't get anything from the base at all, but you base, you get full HP, you maybe get a few pots and a pink ward, that can actually kind of put you in a winning position because it forces the opponent to base or make him, or you can deny him a few creeps if he doesn't base just because you have stacked up on pots and you're full HP again. And that's something I would really have liked to see Sencux actually do in this game.
Yep.
Because that is the biggest weakness of Viktor.
Yeah, we touched on how Sencux, I think, really botched the first 5 minutes of the lane manipulation and his recall timings, letting Crown just get to that hex score basically unscathed, although he did suffer a minor CS deficit. The thing here also, by the way, as you see the needlessly large rod on Viktor, I'm wondering if he's going to actually just make that into a Luden's Echo, because I can't see it transforming into a Death Cap against the Graves or the Kled, and I don't think it's really necessary. I think he realizes that he's so far ahead, and as long as Splyce can't bring him down, which the Luden's Echo is going to give him the slipperiness to do so, I think he just rolls over the entire team fights by himself, and Tahm Kench is not going to be able to interrupt that.
So this is the kind of thing that's, I mean, obviously very situational, but just mostly because he's so far ahead.
Honestly, I feel like it's a mistake to buy a large rod. He has absolutely no reason to get it, and he should be going for cooldown reduction. Obviously, right now, he values the movement speed. He just completed his Luden's Echo. But cooldown reduction is way more valuable as Viktor at this point in the game. And also, he doesn't have a huge mana pool. So I think that he should be going for Morellonomicon instead, because it just is too strong of an item to get on Viktor.
Yep.
But
oh
I just want to point out that XPEK thinks that Sencux is too tanky right there. Definitely special.
Splyce are trying to hang on here, and Mikyx absorbing a lot, but at this point, well, the Rocket's going to go a little bit wide, and Crown, yeah, he's godlike. He does get shut down. The Kled Gold comes in. Splyce do get a little bit of extra for their team, but like all the same, they should maybe not be able to turn this. Now that they've lost Wraith. So Splyce do manage a fight. It kind of came down to a really, really long movements up to the top.
Yeah, that was mostly all CuVee's fault right here. Him going down there was just way too bad, and then Crown was out of position. I don't know what this teleport is. This feels like a little bit disrespectful of a teleport. I don't think that if this was LCK or if this was the finals, semifinals of a match, they would be making this play, because it just doesn't make sense. Nothing's gained off getting these kills. I
mean, the fight's just getting a little bit crazier. CuVee does go golden, and Wunder should fall. Ruler's going to pick the kill up, but it feels like it's gone a little ARAM-y here. Oh, and Kobbe's killed CuVee.
Wow.
I just looked at Crown's turns, and he has cooldown reduction per level, and that's probably why he's not opting into the Morellonomicon. So we might see him go for something like Lidsbane later. That's another item that would give him movement speed, it would give him a better mana pool, and it would give him the last 10% CDR, so he would sit on a 40% once he has blue buff as well. So I think maybe not Morellonomicon would be better, but maybe something like a Lidsbane, because it technically does the exact same thing as a Luden's Echo.
Yep. I think the Lichbane is very good. It has a lot of synergy with that Luden's as well, and I mean that's how Crown has been wanting to play these team fights. Also interesting that you brought up the CDR, because generally Victors in Korea elect to take the magic resistance and just be a complete lane bully. So I think it also shows a little bit deeper into what was Samsung thinking just in the drafting phase. And given how Crown played the laning phase, levels 1 through 5, I think it indicates that he had complete intention to just be defensive.
Yeah, but I think he doesn't necessarily have too much of a defensive build, because his mana pool is so low that if he wanted to be defensive and just spam his abilities on the wave, then he would run quite out of mana quite fast.
Yeah.
So that's actually what you see. It's kind of a struggle for Samsung right now, because you see Crown go to lane, he's spamming his abilities, he's taking jungle camps away, and then you see him having like 40% mana, and then now he goes ahead and is like, oh, okay, I'm not going to use my abilities because I'm going to run out of mana. Like, he would be able to snowball it harder and be able to really have a lot more of a presence on the map if he just went for some more mana items.
Yep.
So
I think picking up a Sheen next would be good.
I was going to say, like, is there an item build that would specifically kind of move him in that direction? Is there anything else on the map that they should be focusing on? I mean, the Baron seems, like well within their purview if they can set it up properly.
Yeah, I mean, they can kind of do whatever they want. They have a very strong team fight right now, and all of Samsung is strong. They just need to be sure that everyone is ready to fight once the fight actually happens.
Well, Wunder's ready to fight, that's for sure. Yep. And the Rocket does not take down Ruler. It gets really, really close, though. Samsung have been able to disengage this. That was close, though.
That was pretty close, yeah. Ruler almost actually went down there, which was a little bit surprising. Credit to Splyce, though. They did try to capitalize on a mispositioning by Samsung.
Yeah. I mean, we're focusing a lot on Samsung because this is the Crown stream, but like, Splyce seem to have not been slouching super hard on their team fights, and Samsung have been making some mistakes. I mean, what's the back in here for Splyce?
I think it has to be that Kled gets a really good engage on top of Crown, and then they really try to follow up with like Graves ultimate, with Jinx ultimate, just stack a lot of damage on top of Crown while he's CC'd by the Kled. besides that, it's a very slippery Samsung lineup. Like Ezreal can kind of do his own thing. It's really hard to get on top of him. So I think as the game goes on, they should just focus on killing Crown and then make sure that Crown does not kill the Jinx, and then Jinx can maybe snowball with some resets.
Yep. I think Crown's about to recall here. He is stockpiling a ton of gold.
Wow.
He's gonna go ahead and buy a Void Staff right now.
Yep.
So he's not gonna fix his mana pool problem. So he might need to base a bit more often. Yeah. The good thing about this build though is that it provides a lot of movement speed, it provides slows, and he does have a decent amount of CDR while he has blue buff. So he's gonna deal a ton of damage.
Yep. So when these team fights break out, you can look for Crown to just try to absolutely annihilate either Kled, Cassiopeia, Tahm, or Jinx, because the only real target that can survive his entire burst is gonna be Graves with that maul.
Yeah. I think ideally for Crown, he would want to kill the Jinx, because I think Jinx is the only one that can really carry the fights for Splyce. It's the only one that can really deal with all of Galaxy's long-range abilities. So.
Yep.
Yeah, Kobbe's definitely been showing up in that regard.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can see Samsung still, they've been able to at least get some catches off as long as they don't, like, lose control and that the fights just go really crazy, and that's when Splyce seem to have been able to get it. But at this point, he can also play sidewave control really well.
Yep.
Well, that's the problem. Right now, it might look really good. Crown is getting so many CS. Like, he has 312 CS at 30 minutes, and it's very good. But at one point, he's going to be full items. But Viktor cannot stop taking CS. Like, if you need to wave clear mid, it's probably going to be, like, Ezreal can hit a few Qs.
Oh.
And we have a fight.
Oh boy. All right,
boy.
so they blew a lot on Mikyx there, but Trashy's still going to go down. Wunder's chasing down Crown and Ambition, but there's no backup left anymore. This is Samsung starting to pick Splyce apart.
Yep.
Yeah, this looked like Splyce was just caught out of position. I don't think they necessarily needed to contest that buff really hard.
Yeah, the other problem is, even though some people might think that it might be advantageous for Splyce to fight in condensed areas, it's actually not going to be, primarily just because of the Viktor and the Rumble. And looks like that Baron's going to go down, and Crown...
They do focus straight on him, but I mean, they've already got Baron buff. Mikyx was locked up. Wunder can only use so much, and you know, they could just blow right through the Tahm Kench. So Samsung are, I mean, this looks like they're entering endgame.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually think Splyce was in a pretty good position if they had just not really walked up and died, because they were about to finish their power spikes, and then they could maybe have looked to fight. Right now it's going to be very tough, especially with another Infernal Dragon spawning, and that's the best thing for Viktor. Usually Crown is probably going to go for a death cap, just because they already have a Fire Dragon, and they're going to get an Infernal Dragon, and they're going to get the next one too, and it just synergizes so well.
Yep.
Yeah, his AP's starting to pretty much hit critical mass.
Yeah.
So Crown's pretty happy right now. I mean, 7-1-3, you can't really complain about the score he's been able to put up this game.
I don't know.
Oh,
now you know. Yep,
Sencux is gone. But Scumbag Raid stole the kill.
Mikyx is going to die too.
Yeah. Hey, didn't even get to great health. Wow, and Ray steals it again.
Yeah.
That's so BM.
So the fish wanted the fish. That's what was going on there. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, you know, fish do eat fish.
And this is probably going to be the end game push. I actually can't see Splyce holding this, given that you look at Samsung Galaxy's summoners and then you look at Splyce's, and Samsung Galaxy can be really, really flexible inside of this team fight and sieging these Nexus turrets if they choose to be.
And you look at the death timers too.
I think they're going to go to the next inhibitor because Rumble is back catching the minion wave.
If I know Samsung though, they'll take the second inhibitor first. This is just stylistically how they played inside of Korea. They are very methodical, always looking to maximize the percentage chances that they will win the game or lower the percentage chances that they will lose the game. That's just how they like to play.
Yeah. Crown's really been on display this game though. Even though the matchup, you know, could have swung Sencux making a couple of mistakes, you can argue not always optimal, but Crown really, really played well so far this game, and it shows why a lot of people put him, you know, very high in the pool of mid laners at Worlds.
I also think it's a good game to have for Samsung first, like go out, play your comfortable champions, but when they're gonna play against better early game teams, then they might have a problem with picking Viktor early on in the game, because it really can't punish them, and you saw that Splyce was almost able to do it, so I think that they might be a bit more careful with picking Viktor next time, even though he's having a really great game right now.
Yep.
Alright, let's see if they can finish this one off before Wunder goes in.
Wow.
Oh, he's on CuVee, but I mean, you can't finish him off when the Zhonya's is on, and there you go.
Yeah.
The Chaos Storm's just going crazy.
And
Mickey, Wunder, Kobbe, they're all scattering here. CuVee goes in for the flash.
Oh.
He's going to die, though. Oh, maybe not. The
Oh.
heal.
oh my God!
Ow.
Hello.
Okay, well, that
That was
that
not
is
a
single
glorious
game over.
revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be it. So 33 minutes in, Samsung, they show him who's boss. They pull out the emotes, and they go right onto the fountain.
Oh.
Oh, that's a manner move. All right, well, that's GG.
Nice.
Oh man. And I mean, that was a pretty dominating performance, I think, from Crown there. He did what I expected him to do when it came to the team fights. I think that his positioning was always relatively pretty good, and I can't wait to actually see what his damage output this game was, because he did so much with those lasers, even at max range.
I have a feeling it's going to be pretty damn high. Yeah, Froggen's looking at it on the screen. Oh, boy.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, Ruler had a pretty good time on the Ezreal, too, but yeah, Crown was just blowing people up.
Yep.
I mean, for the moment that he nuked Trashy in the river, like, it started to seem to go, like, snowball downhill for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Sencux wasn't able to transition his early kills into anything worthwhile, and I think that also because of how he dropped the laning phase early on against Crown and enabled Crown to just get to that hex score, that was the biggest points to take away, I think, from the early game.
Yeah. Crown didn't have to give anything away either in his pick ban. I mean, we talked about this being a guy who played the most champions in LCK as a mid laner, even if a lot of them were one-offs, but he just brought out his Viktor, and he did Viktor things. Curious to see what else he's got in the tank going forward in the matches. I mean, it's a good point, Froggen. He may not be able to get away with playing the Viktor against opponents that do a little bit more in the early game.
Yeah, I think Viktor, you can really abuse him in the early game. Like, you saw it, even Splyce, they were, like, not like they're a bad team or anything, but they were able to punish that Viktor pick early on. Like, Sencux picked up 2 early kills. He was able to deny Crown of a really good base, so he was faltering behind, and then he's trying to catch up by farming the jungle creeps, and they weren't able to get the blue buffs onto Crown and all that kind of stuff. And that can really snowball really hard when you have a mid laner that's not really relevant in the first, like, basically the first 1 to 7 levels. But besides that, I think that obviously his display on Viktor was really good. He played the team fights really, really good. That's, like, if you want to pick Viktor, you need to be able to do that, and he's able to do that. But
Yeah. Last thing I want to mention, though, is I think that Crown played the laning phase, levels 1 through 4 or 5, expecting to get that blue buff, and when he didn't get it, that's when Sencux really was handed the ability to really just apply pressure to the wound, and he didn't do it. So I think that's where one of the really biggest problems came in, was the mishap with blue.
Yeah. Definitely something that other teams will probably be watching to see if they can exploit, but that is it for us for now. For here, we'll be right back for the last game of the day, where we'll welcome Matt back to the show and head to the bottom lane to focus on the matchup between TSM's Doublelift and RNG's Uzi. That should definitely be a good one, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Until then, though, we're going to go ahead and pass it back to the analysts as they continue their discussion of Samsung Galaxy's victory.
Wraith was